Hello, today we will be reading the continuation of Field Trips Always End Terribly, written by Itslivybear on AO3. This will be Chapter 5. So you have chosen death. Summary: the sports festival and how everyone is handling things. Class 1A was not handling things well. Some were worse off than others, of course, the people who had been closest to Midoriya taking the hardest hits, but the presence of the joyful boy that was now absent was noticed by everyone. Mineta had the audacity to mutter something about how he was quirkless, it was stupid to throw himself into the fight like that, and got Bakugo to burn his eyebrows off. He was held back from murdering the kid by the more level-headed of the class, but everyone sent dead glares in the direction of the short boy. He transferred out the next day. With two empty spots in the class, even if only one was truly felt, the announcement of the sports festival rang decidedly dead. Sensei, Kaminari hesitated to call out, what about... Everyone's eyes slid to their mummified teacher, completely silent. We're working on it. No one seemed satisfied with the non-answer, but it was Bakugo who exploded, which, really, they should have seen coming. We're just gonna have the fucking sports festival while Deku is missing? Black and tired eyes met red and angry ones. I don't like it either, but think of it as a show of strength. We're working to find out where he is and get him back, and we can't put our lives on hold until he is. Besides, with any luck, he'll be back before then anyway. When they opened the door to be met with a crowd of people, even the calmest of them bristled. Monoma, from the class next door, was the first to make a mistake. The mighty 1A, facers of villains. You think you're so much better than us, don't you? Asui, who had been with Midoriya, twitched. I heard you have two spots open, one from a coward who couldn't handle the heat, and the other from poor, quirkless Midoriya. Uraraka, one of Midoriya's first friends, twitched. Someone in the crowd, tall with a shock of purple hair, shifted uncomfortably. I bet he'll be a villain by the end of the week, not like someone without power could ever be a hero. Bakugo, who had known Midoriya the longest, twitched, but he wasn't the one who spoke up. With words of, no one with your power could ever be a hero, burning through his head, he took a step forward and sucked Midoriya on the jaw, breathing heavily in anger. We might all be here for the same reason, but I was to scout out the class, not make fun of the dude who got kidnapped. Show a little restraint, jackass. You're making the rest of us look bad. He offered a nod at the angry and shocked class before stalking down the hall. Wait! Bakugo barked. The boy stopped and turned his head, making eye contact. What's your name? He raised an eyebrow. Why? A savage grin overtook the blonde. I make a point to know the names of the people who pose a challenge. He paused for a moment before smirking and turning away again. Shinso Hitoshi. Don't forget it. 2 weeks later, it was the day of the sports festival, and no one in Class 1A looked particularly happy about it. There had been no new updates from Aizawa, but they could tell it was wearing on him as well, seeing him get more and more frustrated as time went on. When President Mike called for them, the 18 members marched out like it was to their death. Bakugo was called for the opening speech, and he looked out at the crowd of people and students. I'm going to win. The other competitors, save for Class A, erupted into boos and cheers, and he snapped. I wasn't done! He stood straighter, shoving his hands in his pocket, and prayed that Midoriya was watching, wherever the hell he was. I'm going to win, because to me, that's what being a hero is. And last time I had to step up, I didn't win. The stadium was silent. I didn't win, and my friend got taken because of it. Yeah, the media stopped fucking talking about it, but he's still out there, and I know the little shit is still fighting. So, I'm going to fight too, and I'm going to win. He paused, pursing his lips. For Deku. Plus fucking Ultra or whatever. Without another word, he stalked off the stage, hands still in his pocket, expression daring anyone to question him. The stadium burst into almost confused cheering, the school motto, even with swearing, knocking them out of their funk. Well, Midnight hummed, that was so very inspiring. Now, time for our first event, the obstacle course. The class nodded at Bakugo as he rejoined them, each also hoping Midoriya was watching, echoing the sentiment in their head as they got ready to race. For Deku. For Midoriya. Tomura and Kurogiri fretting over him was nice for the first 2 days or so, because they carefully avoided the topics of heroes or All Might. Once Izuku had explained that it hurt him to even think about them for the most part. Funnily enough, when Tomura slipped and cursed All Might, no pain came. It was almost as if it had to be in a negative light, or it would hurt. Not something he was keen on testing. After the first 2 days, however, the mother henning from the both of them was really just disconcerting. At a certain point, he didn't want to pick the video game, and he didn't want to pick what they were going to have for dinner, and he really wanted to be able to watch the news again for some information on what was going on outside. Sure, it was nice that they seemed to care, but it was stifling and almost degrading. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. Stop! I didn't train and get good with knives for months to be treated like I'm fragile. I'm fine. It hasn't even happened since that one time with All Might on the TV. Tomura pouted for all of 2 seconds, scratching his neck lightly before sighing. You're right. You're a good rogue. My bad. Apparently, however, there was still a careful watch over him. What? Why can't we watch the sports festival? You said you do that every year. Izu, it's an event swarming with heroes. The last time you saw a hero, you passed out. No in hell are we watching that. Izuku desperately raked his brain to come up with an excuse. He really wanted to see his friends, and what had to be 2 weeks of seeing Tomura, Korigiri, and video game characters, and Sensei. Tomura, that hasn't happened in days. It was probably just an adverse reaction to, something. I don't know, but in the effort of science, I say we take our chances and see what that was all about. The older boy considered it for the moment, then shook his head. Us saying the word is different from you actually seeing them. Plus, I can't believe they're even holding it this year. One of their students got kidnapped. Izuku chose not to point out that he had been the one kidnapped, and Tomura had been the one doing the kidnapping, feeling it was a moot point right now, and not helpful to his argument. Please, we've already missed the opening ceremony anyway. I'm sure the first event has already started. He turned on his best puppy eyes. Please, Tomura. Red Eyes tried to avoid his own, but eventually he gave in. Sure, fuck it. Fine. Are you sure you're not a bard? That charm is intense. He couldn't help but chuckle, way too used to the gaming references by now. Give me a knife and I can prove it. Tomura snorted, but more in amusement than anything else. Izuku's heart almost skipped a beat. It almost seemed like he was open to the idea. Maybe he could get more liberties? Not now. Focus on the festival. He had been right. It had already started several minutes into the first event. Some contestants were still struggling with 0-pointers, which had been the first obstacle, but he watched as Todoroki and Kachan reach what present Mike announced to be a minefield. His eyes wandered back to the second obstacle, and he saw Uraraka and his other classmates hurling themselves across the pit. It looked fun, and he really wished he could have been there to run the race with them. He shook himself out of his train of thought. No use dwelling on what could have been. I really don't get why they're having this, though. He glanced over to see Tomura looking genuinely confused. What do you mean? Tomura scratched his neck. I mean, after that big attack? Sure, we didn't really ensure more than he raised our head in 13, but we took you? He swallowed, thinking hard. Well, it's like you said. The media and the commission both stopped talking about me pretty quick, so canceling it over me would seem rather foolish. He shifted, bringing his knees up to his chest. Besides, there's more students at UA than just me. Canceling it for all of them wouldn't have been fair. He heard the scratching get louder. Tomura clearly agitated over this, and his eyes widened. Izuku darted out his hand to grab the one scratching, wincing at the angry red that was threatening to turn into split skin and blood. You're hurting yourself, he murmured. Tomura looked at him before smiling. Thanks. Izuku nodded, turning back to the screen, ready to watch the rest of the festival and pretend that his heart wasn't hurting. Was Tomura right? Was he even being looked for? It wasn't until the medal ceremony, Kachan had won, which was expected, but still cool, that he felt the full body flinch. The appearance of All Might on the screen did not send bolts of pain through him like last time, but it caused a visceral reaction nonetheless. Immediately, the TV was turned off and Tomura hovered over him, looking worried but not wanting to touch him. Are you okay? Where does it hurt? Izuku shook his head, eyes blown wide. I'm not hurt. I don't feel any pain. I feel. He trailed off, not wanting to articulate out loud exactly what he had felt when he saw All Might, even for a brief moment. He had always seen All Might and felt nothing but joy, nothing but hope. Even after his dreams had been crushed all those months ago, All Might had still held that place in his heart, but this time it was different. It wasn't like the last time he'd seen All Might on TV, blaring pain and stark realizations. No, like he had told Tomura, he wasn't hurt at all. It was worse. He hadn't felt any pain at all, no. What had caused him to flinch so hard was not pain. It was fear. Izuku was afraid of All Might. And that's the end of this chapter. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Once again, Izuku getting brainwashed by Sensei is making appearance. I honestly love this fic. Seeing Shigaraki and Izuku develop their friendship gradually like this, seeing Shigaraki getting more and more protective of Izuku without even realizing it is absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to see more of Kurogiri as well. I hope everyone enjoys and has a very good night. I will see you in the next chapter.